video, we're going to discuss DEI, right? It's quite a controversial topic. Many people actually don't like it, even some people from ethnic minorities. I myself am from an Indian Asian background, and Nigel Farage, of course, he is from a white background. He's doing a very interesting interview here that has got many, hundreds of thousands of views. 260,000 views almost, and he's going to be discussing this in this video. And Nigel Farage, he supported Brexit, he's considered a right-wing politician, and even though him and I are from quite different backgrounds, he worked in the finance industry, he ended up making significant amounts of money. I think he's a multi-millionaire at this point. And he quit finance to pursue Brexit, which is the separation of Britain from the European Union. So he's quite an interesting figure because he had that experience, like Trump, in the finance industry or dealing with the finance industry and in politics. And he knows how things have changed over several decades with political correctness, woke culture, feminism, liberalism, DEI too, right? Now, I myself, as I say, coming from a different background from him, ethnically Indian, and I agree with this guy, and typically you might think, oh, who opposes DEI? It would be white people or white men. But DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, all these requirements for, hiring and promoting women or people from certain ethnic minorities, you think I might be in support of it. But the way it actually works out, and as we'll cover in this video today, actually there's many thresholds for hiring people could disadvantage me the same way it would disadvantage a white man, because Asians are considered model minority, and sometimes they consider them overrepresented in positions of tech or finance industry, and that kind of means they don't set specific targets that benefit me, but they might pick another ethnic minority or another religion or the rainbow community or woman and set targets that are in favor of hiring and promoting them. And then middle management would often get the benefit of, they get targets set for them by the company. If you hire more women, we're going to help you're meeting our diversity targets, so we'll give you a bigger bonus. If you promote more women, you're going to meet our diversity targets too, and then we're going to help by again giving you a bigger bonus. So a lot of these things, they disincentivize people from working hard, because they're like, okay, if you have an Asian man like myself and I work hard, and then you have a white woman who's progressive, liberal, repeating all the right talking points of equality, diversity, inclusion, supporting whatever the political agenda is, whatever the left-wing political agenda is, speaking out against Trump, against Brexit and things like that. She's seen as favorable to the establishment and to the elite that run the banking industry, and they'll put her on a faster track to promotions. And I've seen this time and time again, and I've seen this adversely impact white people, white men, Asian men, and in certain cases, if you're a conservative black man, you might also face these disadvantages. Or if you're a black woman like Candace Owens, there's certain cancellations you might have to deal with if you don't parrot the liberal agenda. And there's this weird dynamic where sometimes white liberals kind of expect people who are ethnic minorities to just blindly go along with DEI or whatever the latest agenda is, hating Trump, hating Brexit. Dealing with this politicized environment. They want to treat you as an ethnic minority as one of their pets, and they want to tap you on the head like, okay, you're one of our pets, repeat all the right narratives, which is very annoying. And it's like, we don't all have the same agendas, we don't all have the same beliefs, right? And thinking that everyone who's a minority is going to support whatever the latest liberal cause is kind of short-sighted. We're going to get started and listen to Nigel Farage and his take on this.
That's why it's not being taught at school.
Something that really frustrates me is with the Hollywood system and how they're hiring people coming in, writers that don't necessarily have the skills to write the Hollywood blockbusters, but they're in there because they're diverse and they're ticking boxes. And it's happening across all of society. I know the films are the least of our concerns because it's happening in the banking systems. And I know you've faced lots of issues with banks recently. But do you think we're actually moving away from equality? Because it's not equality of meritocracy, is it? It's to do with ticking a box at the end.
So this is what happens. You have these things called diversity boxes that need to get ticked. So if you have two people interviewing for a major role in an investment bank, I know from the outside you might think there's a bias, as I say, in favor of men, but it's only in favor of men if he's an emasculated, feminized, liberal, limp wrist soy boy or a shit lib, things like that. You might know these phrases. Those are the people that get favored as a man in the finance industry. If you're I don't want to say, like I say, it's conservative or traditional masculine man, you kind of be overlooked, and it kind of it's become so obvious in the finance industry, it's hard to not notice it. The same way you can look at politicians and be like, all the men in France and Emmanuel Macron becomes the leader, all the men in Canada and Justin Trudeau becomes the leader. You start to think, okay, why is all the people in positions of leadership in the finance industry, in tech, in politics, in many cases, always the same type of character? Now, there are boxes that need to get ticked when it comes to hiring typically. If you have two candidates, a man and a woman, and the company set a hiring and promotion quota to put more women in positions of leadership or senior roles, they're going to go with the woman. And then if the woman, because she's considered a minority and we need to increase equality because equality, I guess, and the man will be disadvantaged. And I've seen these things go on in terms of HR and hiring practices. I remember working for a team where it was kind of evenly balanced between men and women, and then all of a sudden the company says we need 40% women in senior management roles. And then when men would leave for other roles because they weren't progressing in their career, all of a sudden they were hiring loads of women, and it became like an 80% woman team. And then they started getting promoted relatively quickly to senior roles, and they're meeting these targets of, putting a certain percentage of women in vice president roles because they were quickly promoting them to meet these targets. People are getting special treatment based on their race or their gender because it's going to disincentivize other groups. And yeah, like I say, it's not very fair. And then this is technically discrimination. It's discrimination against white people or discrimination against Asians, discrimination against men, because you're favoring one group over the other. Now, the other groups I mentioned earlier. So what ends up happening is it kind of creates an issue from an employment law perspective. And then they kind of try and find a loophole and things like that. And that's why they've been kind of pushback against this, you see, from conservatives. So let's continue to listen to a bit of Nigel's perspective, an honest perspective like mine on the finance industry.
That it didn't matter whether you were Jewish, whether you were Christian, whether you were Asian, black, whatever. Didn't matter whether you'd been to university and got a degree. Didn't matter whether you were humble, working class or aristocratic. You got on according to ability, hard work, honesty and decency. This was a meritocratic society where people were able to move and advance and get on. And we're now chucking all that out of the window with this idea of rights. I'm black, I'm Asian, I'm gay, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. We must have quotas. The banking sector, now full of idiots. Full of idiots. People promoted not on ability, but on ethnicity. We've got to get away, or gender, or whatever it may be. We've got to get away from all of that, or we're never going to achieve our goals as a country. And, the white male, you lot, are going to feel that the world's against you. And Andrew Tate tapped into that.
So this is a good point, right? Meritocracy is kind of gone from the finance industry because you can have one or two systems. You can have a system where the hierarchy is based on meritocracy and competency, as in if you work hard, if you do a good job, if you develop your skills, you can climb the corporate ladder. Now that's been replaced, the meritocracy competency hierarchy has been replaced with an ideology hierarchy, right? Or do you have the right kind of beliefs? Are you liberal? Are you feminist? Do you support woke agendas? I remember being in a meeting, in very senior meetings with like global heads, and I would always prepare for these meetings because it'd be a group of us at the same level having a meeting with a senior manager, and I would think, okay, cool, they're going to ask us some technical questions, what work we've been doing, so I'd kind of prepare that and have that in my notepad of what to say. And it wasn't that. What it was a filtering process to find out who they want to keep, who they want to get rid of on the basis of whether they had the right beliefs. So they'd ask you'd be sitting in a meeting, a senior business meeting, and they'll ask, oh, what's your opinion on Brexit? And it'd be a long discussion about how ardently do you disagree with Brexit? How ardently do you hate Trump? And I would just give a neutral answer like, well, people can have their own beliefs. And then I realized that other people at my level, they would go, oh, I hate Brexit, I hate Trump, I support DEI, I do these, and it's like, and I didn't get it at the moment, but then later I was like, oh, they're filtering for who they want to keep in the company, who they want to promote based on ideology, not based on skill and competency. I didn't get any technical questions about, explain to us the insider dealing rules of UK compared to US. I didn't get technical questions of how does the interest rate swap work compared to a credit rate a credit default swap, something like that. They're not asking me that. So that's when you start realizing, okay, cool, meritocracy is no longer a thing. You want people who have the same ideology, this woke ideology. You want people who are going to push for the CBDCs, push for the carbon credit system, push for this kind of restraint and control of what people can say, whether they can have a bank account or not, things like this. This is the direction things are heading in, right? So in the past, you might have to deal with nepotism, favoritism, but now you also have to deal with DEI, which is this, like I say, is not DEI on, oh, let's have equality of people of different beliefs, of different races. It's really, we're going to select people and use DEI as the excuse, but the real reason why we're selecting certain people is because they parrot the right ideology. Right, which is why so many progressive, liberal, feminist white women are treated very favorably. They, as soon as this system snaps its fingers and says BLM, rainbow community, hate Trump, whatever, those points I mentioned, they're the first ones to jump in line and be like, yes, I agree with whatever the establishment agenda is. I'll push it on others. I'll make it a company policy, basically. That's why you have the Karen meme. I'm sure Karen is in the name, Karen. I'm sure a bit many viewers in the US are aware of that. If not, you might not be aware. So the Karen meme, the HR Karen meme, all these things are really a reality that you have to deal with in the finance industry and many other corporate jobs that I'm sure you had experiences in. And to show you, you know, like I say, you used to deal with nepotism and favoritism. And in those cases, I worked with people who, there was someone who got promoted on the basis that they were the son of a major client, a major hedge fund of the investment bank, so a major client of the investment bank. One of their, let me start that again. So in the past, you might have to deal with nepotism and favoritism, right? And that still does exist. I remember working with someone who is the son of a major client of the investment bank. He had a criminal record. He had a GBH charge, an assault charge that he had basically assaulted someone in previous years. But that was overlooked, and he was given a very senior role in the investment bank on the basis that his father runs a hedge fund, which is a major client of that investment bank. So you see all types of nepotism and favoritism like that, which is already annoying because you're trying to progress on the basis of your skill if you're not in those special networks of people who are given that favorable treatment. But now you have to deal with this DEI, well, if you're not the right race, you're not the right beliefs, you're kind of treated in a disadvantageous way. So let's continue going through this.
Andrew Tate tapped into that. You're going to feel the world's against you. You're going to feel resentful. You're going to feel angry rather than being optimistic and hopeful for the future. These are massive cultural battles, and I'm not pretending that I can wave a magic wand or anybody else can, but I think before you can solve a problem, I think you first need to identify what it is, and I believe that's what it is.
To look at
So, I mean, what he's kind of saying here is that men or white men become resentful when they see this rigged game. And I saw the rigged game, right? Like I say, I'm not trying to make this a race issue or a gender issue, but it's very clear that meritocracy and competency does not exist in the finance industry. There's layers of bureaucracy, there's double standards, and a lot of those double standards are not what you're traditionally told it, which is you're told that, oh, everything's the patriarchy in favor of men, things like that. You'd see completely bizarre agendas going on, right? I want to show you key examples of how these does exist in real life. It's not just a narrative or the anecdotal experience of myself or Nigel Farage. So you can see Morgan Stanley, right? I have worked at this company. I'm not going to comment on my personal experience there, but just look at the public information. So they have a UK Women in Finance Charter. Now, again, they don't have a UK Men in Finance Charter. It's just women, right? There's no men empowerment groups like there are for women. And you see young men dropping out of society, being disengaged. There's apparently a mental health crisis for men, which is really down to the fact they're treated like second-class citizens. And then they have all these rules. We want to increase the representation of women in senior management roles. We want to commit to DEI, things like that, right? And then all these specific targets. Now, you know, I don't want to go too much on a tangent on what feminism is and lowering the birth rate through feminism, encouraging women to work instead of focus on raising kids or teaching kids, homeschooling kids, focus on other aspects of other roles of a woman. Just now she's kind of expected to be a corporate drone, and her role is now completing PowerPoint presentations in the office, completing Excel spreadsheets, going to meetings and things like that. That's the role of a woman in this society now, right? We don't have clear gender roles. So is there an agenda to push more women into the workplace, to decrease the birth rate? I don't think it's really a debate right now, but you can go and think about that yourself. So here are some of the targets that they've achieved, right? So female in Morgan Stanley's board is at 39%. Female representation on EMEA operating committee is 44%. Their workforce is 40% women. 40% of UK officer promotions were women, and things like that, right? And then they've got this other special work they do and donations that benefit women, developing skills and things like that. Now, they don't have this for Asians. They don't have this for white men. They don't have this for, I would say, in many cases, black men, right? They pick and choose, right? And I'm thinking, why are they choosing women specifically to give favorable treatment to? And in many cases, this isn't just women who have neutral beliefs. It's women who have strong, liberal, progressive, feminist beliefs, which align with the establishment's woke agenda, which align with, you know, the rainbow community and not having kids and all these other kind of, anything you describe as woke or left wing, which the establishment's pushing for, the climate activism and the agenda there, like say carbon credits, things like that. They're all going to be on board and pushing the narrative. They're going to jump straight on board on this and become like agents of the state, right? So they're the ideal demographic to receive this favorable treatment. The question then becomes is how far are we going to push this DEI agenda? Because here we can see by ethnicity, we have 9% of the population is Asian. Does that mean 9% of the management for Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and other major banks should be 9%? Black people are 4%. Should 4% of the management and the hiring and promotion targets be aimed at black people? Or if white people are 81%, should they be 81% of the management and the hiring and promotion targets? So what we roll here, if we're saying equality, because I remember working at a bank, I won't name the bank, they said we want to increase hiring or the hiring of people from a black background, if you're ethnically black, to be 30%. That was their target, either hiring or promotions. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. But then they're 4% of the population, and I'm Asian, and I'm not benefiting from that. And should we have a target of 9% or 10% for Asians to be hired or promoted? Are we trying to get the companies makeup to match the ethnicity of the country? The UK is the statistics you see here. Are you going to say, okay, well, 15% of America is African American? Should 15% of Morgan Stanley be African American? I think white people are like 65% in the US. I can't remember exactly, or that's what's heading, given the demographic changes. Are we going to say 65% of Goldman Sachs should be white? This is what happens when you create DEI targets. It's like, what's the goal? If the goal is what a company's goal should be to maximize profits for their shareholders based on what we're told, then DEI wouldn't be an issue. They would even have DEI. They would just be like, oh, who's best for the role, the A or person B, not person A who's a woman or from a particular race, or person B who's white and they're part of the rainbow community, so we need to increase hiring them. Like I say, when they pick on certain demographics to benefit, they're not thinking, oh, we want equality. Like I say, $1 billion bank is not caring about your life and your salary and your ethnicity. They're thinking, no, they're no longer thinking, are you going to be a hardworking, good employee? They're thinking, are you going to parrot exactly the right establishment narratives that we want to parrot? And you see what happens to someone like a Candace Owens when she deviates from the correct opinion that she's told to say. Or Kanye West, who's changed his name to Ye. You see what happens to him. Even though he might be and it might be part of that demographic, the DEI demographic, that they think is going to parrot the Democrat narrative, for example. That's what I'm trying to explain to you here, is that DEI does not focus on competency in meritocracy. It's quite demoralizing if you try to focus on working hard to succeed when you realize not only is nepotism and favoritism working against you, but now there's this new thing that, you can't change your race, you can't change your gender, right? So you can't really change that and go like, I want to work hard and change that and succeed. So you have a very rigged game that you're playing and participating in if you are entering the corporate environment in a sense. Now, I myself, as I say, worked in the finance industry for over 10 years, and I also do offer career advice, honest, unlike a lot of other, people who might be out there selling you a lie, based on my experience. So if you have any questions about growing your career in the corporate environment, considering alternative opportunities, remote work, things like that, I really try to help my clients on that. So there's a link in description if you want to speak with me directly, and I look forward to speaking to any of you honestly about these topics. Leave a comment below. I know it's a bit of a sensitive topic. People tend to think DEI is a positive thing that benefits everyone, particularly ethnic minorities. You'd be surprised how it works. And there are 2 videos on your screen right now if you want to check out those recommended videos, and I'll see you in the next video.